He never expected that the night he finally gave up on love would be the same night his life quietly turned toward it. Michael had always believed that love would find him when the time was right, but at 33, after a string of disappointments that felt like they carved holes into his chest, he began to wonder if love simply didn't exist for him. He wasn't bitter, not exactly, just tired in the way a man becomes after years of trying to prove he deserves something as simple as companionship. That evening, sitting alone in his small apartment with the rain tapping lightly against the windowpane, he whispered a tired confession to himself: maybe love was never meant to arrive. What he didn't know was that life had been preparing him not to receive love, but to give it, and to give it to someone who needed it far more than he ever had. Michael grew up quiet, steady, and gentle. He was the oldest of 3 siblings, often stepping into the role of caretaker when his parents were busy working double shifts to keep the bills from drowning them. His patient nature followed him into adulthood and into his job as a paramedic, where he saw more suffering than most people ever should. He always believed that every person was carrying a story, and some stories were too heavy to carry alone. Maybe that was why he felt love so deeply, because he had spent a lifetime watching people at their most fragile, their most human. But ironically, the same heart that made him compassionate also made him vulnerable. Relationships fizzled, partners left, promises broke, and slowly he learned to stop expecting anything back. He never blamed anyone, but the ache of being overlooked stayed like a quiet shadow behind him. On that rainy night, he had finished another 12-hour shift, exhausted, lonely, and questioning if maybe life had already shown him its cards. The next morning, after a restless sleep, he woke early out of habit. His shift didn't start until noon, but his mind wouldn't rest. He decided to take a walk through the neighborhood park, hoping the crisp air would shake the melancholy from his shoulders. The park was mostly empty, blanketed with dew and bathed in soft, pale morning sunlight. He sat on his usual bench, leaning back, letting his eyes fall shut as he breathed in deeply. Then he heard it, soft sobbing, the kind of sound that slices quietly through space. He opened his eyes, scanning the empty paths until he spotted a woman sitting on a bench across from him. She looked small, as if life had pressed her into herself. Her shoulders were hunched, arms wrapped tightly around her body, her hair damp with morning moisture. She wasn't crying loudly, in fact, it seemed she wanted no one to hear her. But sadness has a way of filling silence, and her pain felt loud enough to shake the air. Michael hesitated. He didn't want to intrude. But something inside him, something instinctive, nudged him forward. He walked slowly, carefully, stopping a few steps away so he wouldn't alarm her. She looked up at him, startled for a moment, then embarrassed as if apologizing for her own tears. He didn't ask what happened. As a paramedic, he learned that people open up when they feel safe, not when they feel interrogated. He simply asked if she was okay. She nodded instinctively, the automatic response everyone gives when they're drowning. But her eyes betrayed her, full of fear and exhaustion. He noticed then, her hands were trembling. Her clothes were clean but wrinkled, as if she had slept in them. A small backpack sat at her feet, half unzipped, revealing nothing but a sweater and a crumpled plastic bag. There were stories hidden everywhere on her, and none of them looked easy. She took a deep breath and finally whispered the truth. She had nowhere to go. Not today, not tomorrow, not anymore. Her name was Leah. Life, she said, had taken everything she thought was stable. Her mother had passed away a month earlier after a long illness, an illness that swallowed their savings and forced Leah to quit her job to be a full-time caregiver. Then came the eviction notice. Then the overwhelming grief. Then friends who vanished when life became too heavy. She had been surviving on what little money she had left, hopping between temporary shelters, but last night she had run out of both money and places to stay. She said she wasn't asking for help. She didn't want pity. She just needed a moment to breathe without feeling like the world was collapsing on top of her. Michael listened, every word settling into him like stones sinking into water. She wasn't weak. She wasn't broken. She was a person standing on the edge of everything she had survived, fighting not to fall. He felt something unfamiliar rise inside him, a fierce, protective tenderness he hadn't felt in years. Maybe ever. He didn't try to fix her problems that moment. He simply offered breakfast, warm food, a fresh start to a cold morning. She hesitated, but the kindness in his tone softened her defenses. They walked together to a small café nearby. She ate quietly at first, her body still tense, as if afraid that accepting kindness meant she owed something in return. But Michael kept things light, talking about the weather, the neighborhood, small things that didn't demand vulnerability. Eventually, she relaxed enough to share pieces of her story, carefully at first, then with a tired honesty that only comes when someone realizes they're finally safe. Over the next few days, their paths continued to cross. Or maybe it wasn't coincidence. Michael checked on her every morning before his shift. He brought her food, helped her look up temporary shelters, made calls on her behalf. She protested at times, not wanting to be a burden, but he reassured her gently that caring wasn't a burden for him. Helping people was part of who he was. And something about her, her quiet strength, her resilience, made him want to show up. Slowly, she allowed herself to trust him. She began opening up, telling him about her mother, about the dreams she used to have before life forced her to pause them, about the loneliness that crept into her nights. She wasn't seeking romance. She wasn't seeking salvation. She just needed a human connection, a reminder that she mattered. And Michael, without realizing it, was falling for her. Not in the dramatic way movies portray, but in the quiet, inevitable way people fall when they meet someone whose pain mirrors their own. She wasn't polished. She wasn't perfect. She was real. And real was exactly what his tired heart needed. He found himself thinking about her even while working, wondering if she had eaten, if she had found a safe place to rest, if she was still sitting in the park hoping someone would notice her. One evening, during his night shift, he received a call about a young woman fainting near a bus stop. When he arrived, he recognized the backpack before he even saw her face. She had been trying to walk to a shelter miles away, refusing to ask Michael for help again. Exhaustion had finally caught up with her. He rushed her to the hospital, staying by her bedside long after his shift ended. When she woke, she looked ashamed, apologizing for being too much, for pulling him into her mess. That was when he realized something important. He hadn't been waiting for someone to make him feel loved. He had been waiting for someone who needed the love he already carried. Someone whose broken pieces didn't scare him but instead called out to the healer inside him. He told her gently, calmly, that caring for her wasn't a burden. That no one survives life alone. That she didn't need to carry everything by herself anymore. For the first time since he met her, she cried openly, not the quiet, controlled tears from the park, but the kind that come from finally feeling safe enough to let go. Over the next few weeks, he helped her get back on her feet. He worked with social services, found programs that could help her restart her life, encouraged her to rebuild her confidence slowly. She found a temporary housing program, then part-time work at a bakery. Each small victory felt monumental. She began smiling more, laughing softly at his dry jokes, showing pieces of herself he hadn't seen before, the warmth, the creativity, the kindness she had buried under months of survival. They grew close, closer than either of them expected. But Michael never pushed her. He knew she needed time, trust, space to rediscover who she was when she wasn't fighting to survive. And as she healed, something remarkable happened. She began offering support to him, too. She listened to him talk about the stress of his job, about his own loneliness and fears. She reminded him that he wasn't just a rescuer, he was a person worth caring about. Their bond became undeniable, a quiet love story growing not from passion or desperation, but from two broken souls learning to breathe again. One evening, months later, they sat together at the same park where they first met. The sun dipped low behind the trees, casting warm golden light across the grass. Leah looked healthy, grounded, her eyes steady and bright in a way he had never seen before. She told him she had been accepted into a long-term housing program and enrolled in evening classes to restart her career. Michael felt pride swell in his chest, not pride in himself, but in her. In her resilience, in her courage. She looked at him then, her voice trembling softly, and told him she didn't know how to repay everything he had done for her. He told her she already had. Because through helping her rediscover her worth, he rediscovered his own. Through giving her love without expecting anything in return, he learned what real love was supposed to feel like. It wasn't about possession or grand gestures. It was about growth, healing, partnership. It was about silently choosing someone every day because their happiness mattered to you as much as your own. She took his hand, a small gesture but filled with meaning. For the first time, she wasn't reaching out because she needed saving. She was reaching out because she chose him. What grew between them afterward wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. It was gentle, steady, deliberate. Two people walking side by side, healing together.